Tonight, Wall Street woes.
The overall takeaway is that the recession risk has risen.
The stock market roller coaster dives as inflation skyrockets and gas prices hit record highs. High stakes for voters in Nevada in today's primary election.
The Democrats, they're definitely on the defensive.
Plus, on Flag Day,
Betsy Ross didn't sew just the first American flag. She went on sewing flags for the U.S. government for more than 50 years.
honoring a single mom and our founding seamstress. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Signs of a recession looming over the economy. Good evening, I'm Jenna Bratter.
And welcome to Faith Nation in Washington. I'm John Jessup. Tonight, the S&P loses every last gain since President Biden took office last year, clearly sending stocks into bear market territory. This is 2/3 of Americans say they're dipping into their savings to deal with record high gas prices and the worst inflation in 40 years.
Yeah, Republicans blame the Biden administration for the soaring prices. The president, though, says his policies are working and helping American families. The CBN White House correspondent Abigail Robertson has our top story. Abigail?
Well, Jenna, today President Biden put the blame on Russian President Vladimir Putin for the rising cost of gas and goods Americans are seeing around the country. Instead, addressing these issues is a top priority.
I'm doing everything in my power to blunt Putin's gas price hike.
Biden says the Russia-Ukraine war caused food prices to increase too.
And I'm working closely with our European partners to get 20 million tons of grain locked in Ukraine out onto the market.
And he argues his policies are working.
The problem is Republicans in Congress are doing everything they can to stop my plans to bring down costs on ordinary families. That's why my plan is not finished, and why the results aren't finished either. Jobs are back, but prices are still too high.
Republicans disagree, claiming Biden's policies like the American Rescue Plan are punishing hardworking Americans.
We said it was going to lead to inflation. It did. We said it was going to create a labor shortage. It did.
According to a new Forbes Advisor survey, 2 out of 3 Americans say they're raiding their savings accounts as consumer prices spike.
Inflation is costing the average American household an extra $460 per month for that gas, their food, their groceries.
Economists fear recession is coming as the S&P 500 enters a bear market and the Federal Reserve weighs a substantial interest rate hike. John, Jenna.
All right, White House correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you so much. And here with us now, Joel Griffith, research fellow in the Roe Institute at the Heritage Foundation. Joel, welcome. What's your take on where the economy's headed? Do all signs, in fact, point to recession?
Yeah, I think American families are feeling what the data show. The data show that the economy shrank last quarter and that prices are rising at the fastest clip in 40 years. And families are feeling that. We know it's costing more than double to fill up the car. It's costing hundreds of dollars extra a month to fill up our grocery carts. And well, if you're looking to buy a house, you're finding out that the mortgage you're looking to get is running about 50% higher just compared to last year. This is a very real stressor on American families right now. When folks are opening up their quarterly 401k statements for their retirement, they're being very shocked right now to find that about a quarter of everything that they've invested has evaporated just over the course of the last few months.
It's happened so rapidly. Joel, raising interest rates seem to be the only real tool at the Fed's disposal to bring down inflationary prices. And those interest rates clearly appear to be taking their toll, as you mentioned, on the stock market, on people's savings accounts. Is the Federal Reserve here in a little bit of a catch-22?
Yeah, look, the politicians in D.C. want us to think that it's just purely the Federal Reserve's fault and it's the fault of rising interest rates. But what they're refusing to admit is that it was the Fed working hand in hand with Congress over the past 2 years that created this problem. Look, we spent around $6 trillion extra over the past 2 years than we normally spent, and nearly every last dollar of that was printed by the Fed and used to purchase government debt. That's why we have inflation right now. We have printed trillions of dollars to finance a much bigger government. And whether the Fed tries to raise interest rates or whether the Fed chooses not to raise interest rates, there's no easy way out of this problem. The central bank and Congress have created a mess, and we're dealing with the consequences right now.
The president keeps calling the record high gas prices Putin's price hike or Putin's gas hike. The war in Ukraine, a factor, but there's a lot more at play here than just that. Joel, talk to us about some of these other factors.
You're so right. I think the typical person understands that this is not just Putin's fault. Our gas prices were rising long before the invasion of Ukraine. In fact, during the first year of Biden's presidency, gas prices rose 50%, and they've increased about another 40% since then. On day one of this president's administration, the president killed the Keystone XL oil pipeline that would have brought in oil from Canada into the United States. He's done his best to kill new refineries, to stop new natural gas pipelines from being built. And on the very day that gasoline prices reached a 40-year, an all-time high, the president locked up another 1 million acres of prime oil-producing land in Alaska. He has declared war on the fossil fuel industry, and our chief climate envoy, John Kerry, who was nominated by President Biden, has made it his mission. He's overtly said he wants to put these fossil fuel companies out of business in the next 10 to 15 years.
Joel, earlier you were talking about Congress being a co-conspirator with the Fed. With these headwinds, though, is there a chance tomorrow, or at tomorrow's expected rate hike, that there might be a delay, or do you think the Fed will be sticking to their guns here?
I think with inflation at 40-year highs for consumers, with businesses facing even higher inflation rates, with the economy really now feeling the brunt of all this new money that's been injected into the marketplace, the Fed is really going to try to mitigate the problem that they caused. But I think it's important that we understand that whether or not the Fed increases rates by a quarter point or 50 basis points or percentage point, there's no easy way out of this problem. If they don't increase rates, then we're likely going to see even higher inflation. And if they do increase rates, we're going to see slower economic growth, but that's likely to happen no matter what, because of all the money that's been printed. And, too, let's remember what happened 2 years ago. We had our government trying to shut down our economy. We saw this happen the world over. That was wrong from the start, and that was really the original sin of what we've seen occur over the last 2 years.
All right, Joel Griffith with the Roe Institute at the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Well, election 2022 and another primary Tuesday with a lot of political eyes watching South Carolina tonight. Pundits say it's the latest test of former President Trump's influence on the GOP. Trump is backing the opponents of Representatives Tom Rice and Nancy Mace. Rice was one of the House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Mace opposed impeachment but was critical of Trump's conduct. Trump is also a factor in the other GOP primaries in Nevada, including races for governor and U.S. Senate, where Democrats hold both seats. In Texas, voters in the Rio Grande Valley will fill a House seat in a special election, and in Maine, they'll set the stage for 2 midterm races that are expected to be hard-fought as well.
And speaking of Nevada, a lot is at stake. It's a state that's seen as a top prize for Republicans hoping to flip the Senate.
Yeah, of course, Democrats want to hold on to those seats. CBN congressional correspondent Matt Galka reports from Las Vegas.
Here in Las Vegas, the stakes are always pretty high. Well, just about halfway through primary season, the political stakes get a little higher, with Nevada playing a major role on the national stage, and it could ultimately be the decider after November.
GOP candidate Adam Laxalt met with supporters in Las Vegas over the weekend. The former state attorney general has his eyes set on Washington and the Senate now.
We have the best opportunity in a very, very long time to have this huge contrast. 2 former AGs in a big clash in what's going to be the biggest Senate race in America. Mark my words, this will be the biggest Senate race in America.
Laxalt and political newcomer Sam Brown are fighting to take on Democrat incumbent Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, considered one of the more vulnerable in the country. Cortez Masto helped flip the Senate blue in 2016. Now Nevada's midterm could be a key decider in determining which party controls the chamber after 2022.
This is a potential turning point for the country. And if we don't win this race and then again in the president in 2024, I see the country going into severe decline.
Barry Hartman chose Laxalt because of one key endorsement.
There's a lot of good candidates, but ultimately I'm a strong Trump supporter, and he's very strong with his endorsement.
The race here shaping up to be neck and neck in a year when Democrats are up against record inflation. Nevada independent editor and political insider Elizabeth Thompson says pocketbook issues will likely be the priority for voters.
The Democrats, they're definitely on the defensive, and it's just the way that political and economic cookie crumbles. We all know that the things affecting the economy right now that are in play are not all Joe Biden's responsibility, but the voters don't see it that way. Voters can be, I would say, reactionary, especially when things are bad.
Now, as far as the House of Representatives goes, political insiders here in Nevada see only one real toss-up race, but redistricting could play a role in a potential red wave come November. In Las Vegas, Matt Gelka, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Matt. Here with us now, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, always good to see you. How much do you anticipate Nevada to be a bellwether tonight? And David, what are you watching for?
Well, Nevada will be important. That'll grab the headlines. I'm really looking a little bit more at South Carolina, but looking at Nevada, obviously Trump and DeSantis both have endorsed Adam Laxalt. So I don't see any reason that he shouldn't win tonight. I know Sam Brown has kind of been coming up in the last couple of weeks. He's Laxalt's opponent there, and he's got a compelling life story. So that'll be interesting to watch. But I think overall Laxalt will win. As it relates to South Carolina, I mean, let's see. Tom Rice is persona non grata in Trump world. Nancy Mace is as well. And so this could be a big twofer, if you will, for Donald Trump tonight. And once again, that'll show more of Donald Trump's staying power. And even though he's had a couple of losses along the way, the bottom line is Donald Trump's endorsement is all really that matters in Republican politics right now.
David, President Biden's popularity at an all-time low, virtually every poll citing inflation as the main reason. The New York Times had this headline: should Biden run in 2024? Democratic whispers of no start to rise. What do you think, David? Do you think he will run again?
Well, it's a good question. I got to tell you, Jen, if you asked me a year ago, I would have said no. 6 months ago, I would have said no. Now I'm not quite so sure. Look, Don Lemon the other night asked the White House press secretary about this very question. And the fact that Don Lemon is even asking the question, all you need to know, which is that this is a serious talk within Democrat circles. Here's the problem for Democrats. Who are they going to run? Who are they going to run? The Democrats don't like Kamala Harris. I mean, that's not me talking. That's the Democrats talking. They don't like her. So who's going to run exactly? I mean, not that she wouldn't run, but she's not going to win. She's surely not going to be Trump. So who do they have? Elizabeth Warren? I don't know. I mean, help me out. I'm done. I think my list is over. The bottom line is they've got no bench. They've got no bench. So what are their options? Not much.
David, we got a little bit of a picture or sneak peek into the future. This summer, the president is set to travel to Israel and then Saudi Arabia, the oil-rich nation he once called a pariah. David, the trip seems to suggest desperation to help bring down high gas prices. How do you see this?
Well, yeah, the media loves to sensationalize everything. I mean, is it desperation? I don't know if it's desperation. I just think it's simply, bad PR for the Biden administration. Oh, this just in, bad PR again for the Biden administration. Look, I mean, he said he wasn't going to meet with the Crown Prince because of Jamal Khashoggi. And then all of a sudden, I need your help, Saudi Arabia, because we've got some problems with gas in the United States and with oil. So I think we will meet with you. I mean, this what has been going on with the Biden administration for a long time. So bad PR, but I think a catastrophe, no, not necessarily.
David, the January 6th committee has postponed tomorrow's scheduled part 3 of their hearings. What should we make of this? Some are saying it's because of the Supreme Court might release a big ruling on abortion or gun rights.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm with the rest of everybody here. I mean, just to be straight up about it, Jen, I'm scratching my head about it. I mean, it does make you wonder, right? We know there are going to be decisions released at Wednesday at 10 a.m. Maybe they're doing it either A, they know something, or B, look, Wednesday 10 a.m. we better clear Congress just to be safe. So I don't know at this point. I just will say this, that we're getting down to the final days here in terms of these decisions being announced. But here's the thing. they're saying it was a technical issue about Wednesday's hearing. That's why they couldn't have it. Well, if there's a technical issue, but they say Thursday's hearing is on just fine. So why is Thursday's hearing on just fine if Wednesday's already a technical issue? I don't know. My free thinking cap is on. Something seems a bit amiss.
All right, David, we have to leave it there for this evening. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
You bet. Good to see you.
Coming up, the dismal statistic from Russia's war in Ukraine that's sending one American couple back into the war zone. Next on Fake Nation. Well, welcome back. As Russia expands its land grab in eastern Ukraine, the refugee crisis spirals toward unprecedented numbers.
Yeah, that's why one American couple is heading back to the war zone to rescue women and children. CBN's Brody Carter spoke to that family about their life's work.
This will be Kirk Nowry and his wife Violetta's fourth trip to the Ukrainian border since the war started. Through their ministry, Hope Partners International, they provide food, shelter, and the gospel message of hope. More than 14 million people have been displaced from their homes since Russia invaded Ukraine. 7 million have fled the country altogether, with nothing more than a suitcase.
Our mission is to rescue children and transform their lives in Jesus' name.
Hope Partners International has helped some 11,000 men, women, and children by providing shelter, food, and medical supplies to those who need it most.
And we tell our story that hope lies in Jesus Christ, that the first hand that reaches out in any disaster in the world ought to come from God's people who represent the hands and feet of Jesus.
My name is Oksana. I'm from Mariupol.
A Russian bomb forced Oksana and her daughter to leave their home. Rubble and ash are all that's left.
My mother stay in Mariupol, and my home is destroyed.
Tuesday marks 111 days of war. Most of Ukraine's eastern border is under Russian control. A Russian flag now hangs over Mariupol's city entrance. Its monuments repainted in Kremlin colors.
I have a tough time at night going to sleep, thinking about all the ladies and all the children, all the war stories I hear during the day.
Russia is once again being accused of war crimes after several cluster bombs killed hundreds of civilians in Kharkiv.
We talked to a family here just a week ago, grandparents in Ukraine, that watched their 15-year-old son be shot in the back by Russian troops.
The Nowrys also arranged daring rescue missions. Pastors drive vans into war zones to save refugees and bring them to safety in Romania.
It's really God just asking us what's in our hands. Give what's in your hands. You know, that's the resource that you have. If it's prayer, if it's time, if it's money, just use what's in your hands.
I want to tell people of Romania, thank you very much.
The Nowrys are raising funds for another rescue van, which doubles as a transport for food and supplies to give people still in Ukraine. You can find out more about their efforts on cbnnews.com.
Today, Tuesday, June 14th, is Flag Day. When we come back, the story of the founding seamstress who brought Old Glory to life.
Well, June 14th is designated Flag Day, a time to cherish the red, white, and blue.
That's right. And as we honor the high-flying flag, it's important to know why we celebrate the grand old rag and what those stars and stripes represent. For that, we're pulling this one from the archives when CBN's Paul Strand joined a leading American historian for the story of Old Glory at the house where Betsy Ross lived.
Betsy Ross, who lived and died here in Philadelphia, will always be remembered for sewing the first American flag.
When you stand in front of the Betsy Ross house, you're seeing a single mom doing something to take care of her family.
By age 30, Ross had become a widow, not once, but twice.
And now she here is trying to care for her children. She was a seamstress and an upholsterer.
The Founding Fathers had worked on a design and colors for the first flag to represent their soon-to-be free nation. Each color meant something special.
Red stands for hardiness and valor. We're going to be people that are strong and brave. White, purity and innocence. When's the last time you heard anybody in the government say we need to be a pure nation? That's moral purity and legal innocence. We don't break the law, and we're pure before God. That's what white means. And then when we look at blue, it's perseverance, vigilance, and justice. We will not give up. As it has been said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We persevere in what's right. That's what the colors mean, red, white, and blue.
Now these founders needed someone to sew their flag. George Washington knew Betsy from Christchurch near her house.
They come and they say to single mom Betsy Ross, we need lots of flags, and we'd like to have lots of stars, and we want them to have 6 points.
Betsy pointed out those are complicated to cut.
And then she took a piece of cloth, folded it, and with a snip came up a 5-pointed star. She said, if you do this, you save a lot of money and a lot of time. I said, it's a deal. And so Betsy Ross is the one who gives us the 5-pointed star that's famous all over the world, the American star.
Betsy Ross didn't sew just the first American flag. She went on sewing flags for the U.S. government for more than 50 years.
Right here, where this gravestone by the house memorializes her and her unique contribution to America's great symbol.
So I like to say that our story of whatever we do includes the moms and the ladies.
A point Abigail Adams made to her husband and founding father, John Adams.
She said, don't forget the ladies. And so here's an occasion to say thank God for the ladies who have done a lot to make our nation great.
Paul Strand reporting from the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia.
Turning pain into purpose. How one teen attempts to bring comfort to victims of Uvalde. Finally tonight, a Michigan teen is touching on her own experience to help victims of the Uvalde school shooting. Ella Klimowitz survived a shooting at her own high school last year, and seeing Uvalde brought back those terrifying memories.
And she's turning that past anger into something positive, creating a stuffed animal for every student and teacher at Robb Elementary.
For me, going back to school was probably the hardest. And I think being able to have like a gift from someone that experienced the same thing would mean so much.
Ella has already raised $5,000, more than $5,000 to fund the project. She hopes to provide comfort and support to those in Uvalde, from one community struck by tragedy to another. That's a wonderful way to show support and offer comfort to those, especially those kids.
Oh, they could use it for sure. Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.